Hello, everyone, and welcome back to my dream world. So, first of all, apologies for this video coming out late. I have been dealing with some personal health issues, totally fine, but it did have me drained this week. And as a result, after watching the show last night, I was like, this is going to be a really bad recording if I record it right now. And I do prioritize quality over quantity. So I would rather have this video be out a day late and be much clearer than it would be if I had recorded it last night. And also, if my voice sounds whack, sorry about that. It's just, I'm still kind of feeling the effects of certain elements in my life right now, but I am a-okay and ready to film. I put a couple of content videos out on TikTok last night given the show, but after that I fell asleep almost immediately, and then by the time I woke up it was way too late for me to film. So we're doing this today. And I did also rewatch a couple of dances, actually all of them, so that they were fresh in my mind and I could speak about them genuinely. That's why I usually record pretty much right after I watch, so that it's all like genuine, fresh, and I don't have to try to remember what I just saw and everything. But yeah, I'll get into it right now without any further ado, other than saying thank you for 300 subscribers. Really, really appreciate it. I know that this is kind of a baby channel, but I've been, really starting to kick up the content around now. So it's really sweet of you guys. Thank you so much. So yeah, let's get right into the show since this is already late. I will say, just going into this, I already was not a fan of the idea of a TikTok night. Obviously, I'm not anti social media because I am a content creator. Of course, I'm on TikTok, I'm on all the platforms, but I was just like, what is a TikTok night gonna look like? Gimmicks, and the songs aren't gonna match up with the styles, and I do have to kind of stand on that given what we saw last night. However, there were some pleasant surprises as well, and I was like, you know what? They're gonna do what they can with the theme that they're given, so I'm gonna try not to let that be too harsh of a negative thing throughout this episode. But like I said, I do try to keep things positive, but I also do want to keep things honest for these videos because if you haven't watched before, I am not a ballroom dancer, but I do work in entertainment, so I just love watching these shows in general. And that is basically, I'm going based by what I have seen and what I find entertaining. If you are a ballroom dancer and you want to correct me in the comments, please do. I am totally open to that and seeing new perspectives, seeing the correct perspective in terms of technique. Definitely feel free to correct me and disagree with me in the comments. All I ask is that you are kind if you do disagree with me, because we don't need any more negativity in this world right now. So yeah, not a fan of TikTok night. The costuming was kind of hit or miss for me. I will talk about that a little bit in the individual sections. But yeah, let's just go in and talk about each dance individually. So Jen and Jan opened the show, and I did kind of find her package corny, not because of her, but just because the whole TikTok theme was very hit or miss for me tonight. But, she definitely looks like she's having a lot of fun, and she's definitely putting the work in as well, especially since she has no experience. So I do love to see that. She has a very bubbly smile and just seems like she's so excited to be there. But yeah, the intro to her dance just felt a little weird, and she definitely did feel a little sloppy in some places. I think at this point, pretty much all of the couples have done a cha-cha-cha, so we can kind of see where she ranks amongst the rest of the competition, not including those that were already eliminated. And for me, she kind of landed in the middle. There have been stronger cha-cha-chas. Derek and Bruno kind of pointed out some of the flaws that she had, and I did notice that her arms in particular were quite sloppy towards the beginning. I don't know if that's just me or if there was a weird angle. Again, I'm not a technician, but I was kind of like, ooh, that's not as sharp as it probably should have been. So I did agree with Derek. I accidentally wrote down Jan, but it's actually Bruno's sixes. I personally preferred her quick step. It felt a lot more natural for her. But yeah, it was a solid dance. It wasn't like bad, but it was like, I feel like her quick step was stronger. I know some people kind of, compare on, like, everybody has their own ranking and I do generally try to stick by that because everyone's journeys are their own, but also, like, now that almost everyone has done a cha-cha-cha, we can kind of see where Jen ranks amongst the rest of the group, at least in terms of that style. So that was kind of interesting, but yeah, it was a solid dance. I don't really have anything specific to say about it, but yeah, solid, but not my favorite of hers. Lauren and Brandon are next, and I have thoughts about this one. We will get into it even more later when it comes to talking about the elimination. But even though I will say this, if you guys have been watching the past few episodes or listening to the past few episodes, she was one of my favorites. And I really loved her first two dances. I really was enjoying her on the show. So I'll be completely honest when I say this was not her best performance of the night. Do I think she deserved to go home because of it? Absolutely not. However, I'm not going to be biased. This wasn't her best performance. It just wasn't. She definitely felt a little rickety at the beginning, and there was even a moment where I thought she was off time. Though, again, that could have just been the angle, and it just wasn't as smooth as her previous two dances. Maybe ballroom just came more naturally to her, which I think is what Derek ended up saying as well, and I agree with that statement. And also I just felt like it took a while to actually get into the dance in general because of those long TikTok like intros that a lot of the couples had. Yeah, she just needed a little bit more of an oomph to it. And some people kind of mentioned, because this is her song, right? Like, this is a pretty iconic Fifth Harmony song. She might be used to doing a different dance to it, like different movements and having it, because this is, I believe, a cover. I don't think it was the actual song. She's used to doing a different version of it, and that could have really thrown her off, especially since this is the first time they've had to learn dance within a week rather than have several weeks to rehearse. But yeah, we can make explanations, excuses, whatever you want to call it. At the end of the day, it just was not my favorite of hers. So I actually did agree with those sixes, but believe me, I am still so upset for her. It like I said, I've been rooting for her, so I'm not happy about this elimination. I agree the dance wasn't her best of the night, or the best that she's done, but I just really don't think she deserved to go home, considering she was great the other two nights and she definitely had room to improve. It wasn't like, oh, she can't dance Latin. It was like, okay, she has some things to fix. Hopefully it'll be better next time when she does Latin, but unfortunately now there is not a next time. Again, I'm going to circle back to this when it comes time to talk about the elimination, but I'll just end this off on a positive note saying I thought it was so cute that Fifth Harmony was there in the audience for her. So yeah, we'll move on. All right, next was Danielle and Pasha. First of all, I love that costume on her. She looked gorgeous. Second of all, her package was super cute. It was really nice seeing Sabrina Carpenter give her a little hello. Apparently, she also gave her flowers. I was listening to her podcast and she talked about how like happy she was to get flowers from her and that it was a super cute moment. So, really happy for her. And I will say this was one dance where I was like, ooh, this isn't working for me just because of the song, like, the TikTok viral songs. I was kind of like, I mean, obviously it was a good song, but I was kind of like, is this really foxtrotty? I don't know if this is right, or again, not a ballroom dancer, so I can't say for sure, but I was kind of like, I'm used to a foxtrot being a little more like musical or smooth and soft. This was like, it was a great dance and it had the foxtrot elements to me, but because of that I was kind of like in some moments. But like Lauren, I did very much enjoy the dance. I'll get into that. Like Lauren, it does seem like Danielle is stronger in ballroom than she is in Latin, because her tango and foxtrot so far, in my opinion, were better than her cha-cha-cha. There was a moment where it felt a little bit lazy to me. Not lazy. When I say lazy, it just means like there could have been like a little bit less energy in that part, or like it could have been smoother or sharper, or like you could kind of see a pretty stark difference between the celeb and the pro, which, makes sense. She's a beginner. But she felt a lot smoother here than she did in her cha 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 last week overall. Overall, it was just a really enjoyable dance. I thought it was very sweet. Definitely her strongest dance so far, I think. I mean, I'm gonna go ahead and say yes, because I don't think her cha 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 was not as good, and her tango, while very good, was her first dance after all. So I just feel like, especially considering she was injured and still is basically, that she did a great job. I do have to say we could be kind of looking at this season's Allison Hannigan, and by that I mean someone that is kind of in the middle of the line in terms of dancing, but wins over the audience because of nostalgia and endearment and just overall being an engaging person to watch, because she is so lovely. Like, she seems to be so close with the entire cast. I love her. I really enjoy her journey. I hope she goes far. And she definitely danced pretty solidly this week. And I actually agreed with her scoring higher than both Jen and Lauren tonight, to be perfectly honest. So super happy for Topanga. Okay, next up is Jordan and Ezra. Basically, we had like all the women in the first half except for Alex and maybe Whitney. Correct me if I'm wrong. We still have a lot to go through. But yeah, this was Jordan's first time doing ballroom, and I was quite nervous for her, since I know sometimes it's more difficult to do standard for some people. Especially since Jordan is so short compared to Ezra, which makes frame harder and everything. But oh, she ate this up. I mean, I can't speak on technique, but I loved this dance. She was definitely right about sharpness coming naturally to her, and her getting emotional at the end hits close to home. I have anxiety myself, so I totally empathized. I thought, like, that was one dance where, even though it was a standard ballroom dance, the song and the theme worked really, really well given her story and what they were trying to portray. I just really, really enjoyed this dance. Night one is definitely kind of proving to be a fluke, because Jordan's past two dances have been at the top of the leaderboard. So clearly Ezra is doing much better with the choreography. Jordan is much more confident now, and they've really like locked in to the show, and I'm super excited to see what they do next, since the Disney night dances are out now. And I believe is she doing a quick step? I'll have to double check that. But I remember being excited. She's doing a Tiana themed dance, which is super, super exciting. So yeah, I feel and Ezra's been doing a great job lately, genuinely. I think he is. So I'm this is kind of my couple, actually. I think now that Lauren and Brandon are gone, that Jordan is my personal favorite. So I'm just happy for them. Okay, next up is Dylan and Daniela. Dylan does look a lot smoother in hold. At least, like, we'll see how he continues to do as the show goes on. But yeah, he seemed a lot more comfortable in the standard ballroom hold. However, there was a pretty awkward moment. I'm not sure, again, if it was a weird angle, but it almost looked like he slipped. And I just really did not like the song. Some people were saying, I saw on Reddit and on TikTok, that they were saying it kind of felt like a rumba in some places, which I definitely see with kind of the romanticism of the dance, which isn't innately a bad thing, but it was kind of like, oh, is this, like, again, does this really feel like a foxtrot? And Danny definitely just outdanced him a lot. I was watching Daniela. That was the problem. I was like, the most of the content is coming from Daniela, which, again, of course the pro is going to look better than the celeb, but we want the celeb to shine, or at least, like, when it comes to my favorite dancers, I like it when the pro doesn't tone themselves down, but also, like, and Daniela is absolutely amazing. By the way, this is not a dig at Danny. I was probably watching her because I love Danny. But yeah, I wanted to see a little bit more actual content from Dylan rather than Danny, if that makes sense, because to me, yes, he did the dance, but I was kind of like, I feel like he could have done a little bit more, especially considering what we saw last week. He, maybe wasn't technically perfect, but he did the samba. Like, he did a samba, even if it wasn't perfect in terms of, like, his movement. Oh, sorry, I just banged something. His movement quality. But Yeah, this does seem to be the first dance where I kind of disagreed with the judges' score because I don't think he was as good as Jordan. I would have given him like sevens, at least in comparison. Again, I don't know exactly how I would score as a judge because I'm not a ballroom dancer, but I do think it is fair though that they be more lenient with the non-dancers, but the problem with that is that scoring them equal or higher is also harmful because at the end of the day, the scoring seems, I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, but the votes and the scores reset every week. So it doesn't matter what you did in the previous weeks unless they're like having 2 weeks lumped together like they did the premiere in week 2. But if you scored Dylan the same as Jordan, it comes down to votes. So even if like people say like, oh, let's say we scored Jordan a little harder because she has more experience being a gymnast or whatever. Dylan's a complete beginner. But we scored them the same, it comes down to votes. And that is a problem for me. And this elimination, this episode is a huge example as to why. And I will get into that later. But I do feel like he was a little bit overscored in that regard. I think the sevens were more fair. And also, again, I was just more captivated by Daniela than anyone else. So I was like, it wasn't really Dylan that wowed me here. I mean, he was fine. But I actually preferred his samba because he did so much content in that dance, even if it wasn't as well executed technically. But that's just my opinion. All right, next we have Elaine and Alan. Really did not love the song, but other than that, I thought she was fantastic. Her technique was very strong. There was maybe a brief moment where she lost time or like wasn't as sharp as she could have been. But I really enjoyed this dance. I was surprised that I did because I generally don't like it when things get too flashy or have weird music, but I really, really liked her dance. She was actually one of my favorites of the night. By the way, anyone else notice that Carrie Ann totally glitched at one point during her critique? And given, like, she just kind of went, and everybody, and even Alfonso said, like, what the heck was that? And I was kind of like, did we have a glitch in the Dancing with the Stars verse? I don't know what happened. But, I did get a little bit nervous that they would underscore her as I was listening to the comments because I was like, and also she has prior experience, so they're probably scoring her harder. But they did give her sevens, which, again, I do feel like is kind of ridiculous compared to Dylan. I thought she was very clearly better than Dylan, which, you know, again, she has experience, but also, are we going to penalize her just because, maybe because Dylan's a beginner? I don't know, it just feels kind of off to me. But I'm gonna live with it because even though they did put her in the bottom tonight, she stayed. So I'm of course upset about Lauren, but I'm happy that Elaine is still in the game because I've really, really enjoyed her dances so far. Okay, next we have Whitney and Mark. I just want to say my commentary is going to make it sound like I'm hating. I promise I'm genuinely not. I've actually defended this couple quite a bit because I am a Mark fan. But, yeah, I just want to get that out of the way because I am going to sound like a hater because I did not like this song choice and I hated their costumes because their pants were 2 different shades of green. And that made me really angry because I'm weird. So, oops. But I'm actually shocked that they did a samba to this song since, you know, she is a Mormon wife after all. And this is going to be weird to explain, but when sambas don't have like a classic samba song, they just feel really, really off to me. And when I say like a good samba song, like see Xochitl Gomez's samba from season 32, like the one she did in the semifinals. That was like the samba energy I wanted, or even when it's a non-traditional song like Heidi D'Amelio's samba, or that's a weird example, but I don't know, I really liked the way that song worked for her samba, or even Dylan last week. Like obviously Whitney's was stronger than Dylan's, and I'll get into that reasoning, but like I liked his song for his samba better than hers. If you're a ballroom dancer and you disagree with me, put that in the comments, that's great. But yeah, it just felt, because of that, it just felt off while I was watching it. I was kind of like, whoa, okay. like I don't know, but it was a technical samba, obviously. And if you don't believe me, Shirley Ballas made a video defending the people that were like, oh, it's not a samba because they weren't any samba rolls. Honey, there's a lot more to a samba than just samba rolls, and Shirley Ballas went and clocked everybody on that. So, we have to listen to her, and, you know, she is basically Len Goodman level. Like, yes, she's Mark's mom, so she might be a little bit biased when it comes to defending him, but do you really think that Mark Ballas would not choreograph a proper samba? Come on. Like, she knows her sambas, and so does Mark, so that's how I'm gonna defend them this week. In terms of rewatchability, like, I'm not gonna let aesthetics make me completely hate this dance, because dancing wise, she's clearly very good, and that was a proper samba, but I don't know. In terms of rewatchability, that was just not my favorite of hers. Like, she definitely performed and danced very well, but there were some moments where I was like, it just felt movement quality wise a little bit sloppy. Like, almost as if she wasn't in complete control and was going all out. But yeah, clearly she's a great dancer. Yes, she's trained before, but I'm gonna acknowledge a good dance when I see a good dance. That's on period. But yeah, I can understand why some people didn't like that dance. Like, that's basically what I'm saying. And it wasn't my personal favorite of the night either. All right, next is Scott and Riley. So Scott is the only one that doesn't have a ballroom or Latin style, and Robert is the only other one that didn't have like a standard style because he does salsa. So I was kind of like excited but also nervous to how this would actually end up affecting the competition. I know a lot of people like jazz and contemporary more than they do other styles, and as a result they do tend to be overscored because against some of the other technical dances they can add more tricks. They have more free will when it comes to the choreography and stuff. But I was also like, I really want this to be a breakout for him because I really like Scott and he has great energy and you can see it in his TikToks and stuff. And it was a breakout for him. I would say that was a personal breakout for him because that was by far his strongest dance. His energy felt so much more confident. Carrie Ann was totally right when she said he was in his element here. Some people were complaining that it wasn't a jazz dance stylistically, and I do agree with that. It did kind of feel more like a funk dance, and they kind of treated it more like a hip hop and freestyle dance, which is what a lot of the pros do on Dancing with the Stars. Like, the only people that consistently choreograph jazz are like Britt, Jenna, and then of course Mark probably. Probably Mark. And Whitney has done a few good jazzes, though that last season she did not choreograph a jazz dance. That's all I'm gonna say. Like, no shade to her or Danny, but it's the truth. But it's TikTok night, so I'm not gonna be too critical because they stayed on theme. And I enjoyed this dance. I agreed with the sevens because personally I am more impressed with like technique and complex choreography, and he was slightly out of sync with Riley at one point, but it was definitely really fun. He did a much better job, by far his best dance, and I'm happy for him. Hillary and Gleb. Yes, her name is Hillary. Okay? Honestly, I know we don't like this woman. I personally do not care for her either, but I do enjoy a well-executed samba. And, I'll get into why it wasn't my favorite dance, but she did a samba again. Like, I think it's just because last season there was only one samba, and because it was on Disney night, it wasn't a proper samba. So I'm just like happy to actually be seeing sambas this season. But Bruno was right about the timing and like the musicality. It was Carrie Ann who talked about the musicality. I don't know if it was the song or if she's just an awkward mover. Like, and when I say awkward movement, I mean in terms of like musicality and fluidity and stuff like that. Like like if something just feels kind of like rickety or she doesn't feel confident. Again, she has her hip problems, so I get it, but at the same time, there's a difference between technique and movement quality, and for her it's movement quality that kind of throws me off sometimes. I've said this before and I'll say it again. I either, like, whenever Carrie Ann comments, I either strongly agree or strongly disagree with her, and there's no in between. But this time I did agree. She was right about the musicality. And given Derek's comments, I thought she was gonna score higher than she actually did. But I'm okay with the way that she scored. I mean, I feel like yes, obviously she has the technique, but she has not really like engaged me, even if there are dancers that are weaker than her. I find myself more engaged with them choreographically, theme wise. I don't know what it is. It's just, I'm having a little bit of trouble having sympathy for her. Because, she had that moment where she was like, I just feel like I'm not actually doing a good job. But it's like, ma'am, you have had ballroom, specifically Latin ballroom experience, as I believe Max said on his podcast with Peta and Sasha. Like, don't downplay yourself, ma'am. Please don't downplay yourself. And yes, your fake accent went in and out, and it was throwing me off. So it just throws me off. It does. And I don't want to hate on her dancing because I don't care for her as a person. But when I don't connect to her dance, I just feel like I do kind of feel bad because I'm like, I don't want to be that one person that's like, ugh, she was just boring, because I have called out people for being like that. But yeah, I just don't find myself connecting to her, even though she clearly is a trained, good dancer. Hilaria is a very mixed bag for me, and I have trouble discussing her because I'm like, I don't want to be a hater, but I also like am just not engaged with her. So yeah, mixed feelings. I get why people are kind of crashing out over what happened. So yeah, I'm going to move on now because I have been rambling way too long. Then we have Andy and Emma. This man is so pure. That's all I have to say about his package. Like, he just looks like he's having an absolute blast. I love him. However, again, I'm trying really hard not to have double standards, because as adorable as he is, this was definitely the worst dance, like execution-wise. It was. With Corey and Baron gone, he does stand out as the weakest left in the competition in terms of technique. And yes, there was more content than there was the week before, but he does really just kind of feel like he's walking around rather than dancing, unfortunately. And he had like 2 8 counts where he was holding the phone, which, yes, it's very cute. It's lovely. He's adorable. But this is, at the end of the day, a dancing show. Like, I'd love for him to continue this journey, but it does concern me that he got the same score as Lauren, because voting-wise, he is clearly beating her because she went home over him, and yeah, that I just don't love that. Even though I love him and I'm happy that he stayed, I'm kind of like, dang, come on, are we really going to send a bunch of dancers that are better than him home because he's endearing? I don't love that. That's just me personally. If that's what America wants, then that's what we're gonna get. But it's just kind of like, where do we draw the line? Like, do we want this man to win the show? Probably not gonna happen. But it is kind of something I'm feeling mixed about. All right, next we have Robert and Whitney. And going into this, I was a little shaky because I was like, the salsas have been kind of this season with all the gimmicks and everything. Whitney is generally a very good choreographer, so I was like, okay, it's going to be okay. And Robert has only exceeded my expectations so far, if I'm going to be honest. And, ooh, I know I've been anti-gimmick if you've been listening, but I got a little hot when he took off his shirt. And before anyone comes at me, Robert and I are the same age. So, yeah, calm down. But in all seriousness, I kind of blacked out after he did that and had to rewatch to dance to make sure I wasn't just like, whoa, what the heck just happened? Given the theme night, I think he had a pretty decent amount of salsa content in the first half of the dance, and then it just kind of stopped once he ripped his shirt off. And I am here for him because he is still the best male celeb, and this was probably one of the better salsas of the season so far, because the other 2 were also pretty gimmicky. But I am glad that the judges actually like really critiqued him this time, especially Derek, because I felt like Derek kind of glazed him in week 1. But yeah, once I rewatched the dance after blacking out the first time, I do agree there was some stiffness I saw that I didn't notice while watching it live, and I just think the song was not great for him. It just wasn't a good salsa night. If he'll make it to the finale, this man is gonna win. He's blowing up on social media. He clearly has the fan votes, and he has the scores. He's still like second on the leaderboard even after not topping it last night. Like, he'll be fine. This could be a redemption dance for him, but I just think it was like the song plus like it being TikTok night, so it was very gimmicky. Not his strongest dance in terms of execution, but I didn't hate it. Like, some people really did not like that dance. I didn't hate it. Maybe it's because I blacked out, I'm not sure. But I do agree with him getting the same scores as last week because I have preferred his other two dances so far. This man can actually dance, though. Like, let's not, Whitney, you're a great choreographer. Let's not lean into gimmicks because he's going to blow up no matter what at this point. So let the man actually dance. It's the same comment I had for Jordan in week 1. Let her dance. She can do it. Let's let Robert dance too because I really like this man. I'm a fan of him. And I would love to see him go far and have it truly be warranted on such a stacked season. Okay, not gonna lie, Alex and Val have gotten lost in the shuffle for me, and because of that, I kind of forgot about her, and then was like, oh shoot, we actually have one more dance once we got past Robert. It's like, genuinely no shade, I just forgot that we still had one more dance, and dance-wise, this was definitely my favorite from Alex so far. I think her personality came out a lot more. It was very clean. And yes, there was a very brief break and hold, but it wasn't gimmicky or anything. So I felt like this was a great, clean, quick step. Once again, I didn't love the song choice, but it worked for her. Like, it worked for this dance, even though it was a standard ballroom dance. But this was definitely her cleanest and most confident dance so far. And I really, this is the first dance for Alex where I was like, yes, that I enjoyed that. Like, she's been doing well, but she actually stood out to me tonight. So I'm going to give her props. I really enjoyed it. And the moment I have been dreading for, the elimination, we did her wrong. Maybe I won't say we, but like, I do feel like America did Lauren so wrong. But honestly, I don't want to say I'm entirely shocked because when I saw her at the bottom of the leaderboard, I was like, yeah, she's probably gonna go home because Andy has been getting so much love on social media. So the fact that they had the same scores had me like, oh no. Like Baron, because I've been looking at the social media metrics, like how many likes and views and whatnot, because people have been posting about it. Like Baron, she was very low on that ranking despite having 12 million Instagram followers. So, it just kind of proved the voting demographic of hers was not really taking part in the show. And yeah, this just kind of proves nobody is safe, and sometimes followers are not everything. Like, a lot of people are comparing this to like other eliminations that would happen. For me, it does resemble Lele's and Tinashe's, both of whom were also partnered with Brandon. It's just a shame because I really do feel like Brandon's choreography has been great for the past 2 seasons. Like, he was on fire with Chandler, and he looked like he was going to be on fire with Lauren too. And unfortunately, their journey has been cut short. I am not happy about it, but I'm trying not to be completely biased and say, like, she was so robbed. Like, she should have stayed a few more weeks, but I don't think she was ever going to win, unfortunately, just looking at the votes and stuff, which makes me sad because her first 2 dances were so good, and even though her dance last night was not her best, I'm going to be honest, it wasn't great compared to what was happening with everyone else, but I do think she deserved to stay because I think she could have had a comeback after that. I really think she could have. And I also want to call this out, and I know some people might disagree with me, but I do not like that people are calling her a mean girl just because she's a confident woman that doesn't censor herself because she's in the public eye. You're giving hater. There's some like internalized misogyny going on because this is not the first time a woman has been critiqued for being disappointed or being outspoken about her disappointment. Specifically, well, she is like a light-skinned Latina, but she's Latina paired with Brandon and stuff. It just makes me sad because I feel like people are saying nobody was saying mean things about her until she got eliminated, and now a bunch of people are coming out saying like, oh, she gives mean girl or she has an attitude or whatever. I think she was rightfully disappointed and said, yeah, I'm kind of pissed about this. I really wanted to stay. I thought she was just being real, and I was pissed too. So I can't be mad at her. Like, I just feel like people are being rude about her to the point where, like, Brandon came out and was like, no, she was being confident. And given that everybody was so shocked and sad that she left, like so many people on this cast seemed absolutely floored. How are you going to say that she's giving an attitude? Clearly, these people enjoyed her presence. You probably don't know her in real life. Let's not tear down a woman just because she expressed her disappointment and, frankly, being pissed off. Like, why is that a bad thing? Because plenty of other contestants who are men have done this on the show, but nobody complained there. I don't like the double standards. I'm going to stand up for my girl, Lauren. I mean, I'm sad for her. I really, really am. I think she definitely could have had a comeback from this if she was given the chance. And I just feel bad for Brandon. He really deserved to shine, especially after last season. So, yeah, I'm just disappointed. I know some people, and it's totally okay if Lauren was not your favorite. I am not going to crucify you. It's not. Everyone's allowed to have their own opinions, but it's just kind of like, let's not go to the pros. Because, like I said, not the pros, the celebs. Like I said, I was not really invested in Alex at all. However, would I go on social media and say, like, ugh, Alex is so boring, why is anyone voting for her? No, I'm not going to say that because that's rude. So, come on. As a community, we got to do better. Let's not be mean. Like, everybody felt so bad for Corey and Baron, even though they kind of, in comparison also gave a little bit of sass, both on and offline, like, or on air and off air. Like, Corey made a few questionable comments. Let's just be real about it. And some people apparently didn't like that Baron was like, yeah, apparently the judges disagreed. But they did not get torn to shreds the way Lauren is getting kind of torn down by half of TikTok right now. So I do want to call out that double standard. It's not cool. But yeah, I'm just sad for her overall. I wish she was going on. I really wish she was. But I get it because they were the lowest on the leaderboard, and then when it came down to it, it was like votes, her versus Andy, and Andy is getting those votes. So yeah, I'm gonna quit rambling. Now we'll move on to highlights. I'm gonna be honest, I had a clear favorite, and it was Jordan, followed by Elaine, and maybe third was Alex? I'm not sure, but like I don't know who my third place would be, but I'm gonna have to rewatch, but I think on first gut instinct I would say Alex. But yeah, I mean, I'm sad about the elimination. A few other notes I had. I just did not like this theme. I feel like Scott's dance, and maybe Jordan's dance too, was the only one that really worked with the theme and the song it was given because of the theme. Someone on Reddit said saying Len would have loved this dance in reference to Ilaria's samba feels sacrilegious, and I kind of agree, but I will say I did also love watching Charlie D'Amelio dance. I know some people are kind of like, why is she still on the show? She is the queen of TikTok, so, I get why they had her, especially because she was on the show and she won the show and had a very iconic partnership with Mark, so it was really cool seeing her dance in the bumpers and stuff. What the heck was wrong with Derek's mic? Whoa, was it not like tested beforehand? Was it going in and out? I know that it was because he had a brooch on that was rubbing against it and stuff, but I was like, whoa. I know this isn't a wardrobe malfunction, but can we please fix this? But yeah, overall, unfortunately, this night was kind of disappointing, both because the theme threw me off and I'm not happy with the elimination and everything. But, I do really like this cast, genuinely, so I'm going to continue watching and recapping. Again, please like and subscribe if you enjoyed this video, and if you disagree with my comments, that's totally cool. Let's just be kind to each other in the comments. I'm totally happy to hear everyone else's perspectives and everything. So hopefully I'm feeling better next week and we'll be able to get this out on time, and I will see you next week to talk about Disney night. Bye!